With a special weather update for you. Freezing rain has already started across the area. It hasn't started too long ago in DC, but already I've detected a light glaze of ice on some surfaces in DC. The roads that I see right around the station still look wet, but on like outside on our weather deck, there is some ice on the chairs out there and even a little bit on some of the actual deck itself. So things are going to rapidly deteriorate, especially in the coming hours across the area. Here's what we're looking at right now. Now, I know by this radar indication, it looks like snow over DC. Here's what's happening. Where the radar actually detects what type of precipitation is falling, it is detecting it as snow, and higher up it is snow. But as it's making its way down, it is freezing rain, which falls as regular rain and then begins to freeze on those surfaces that are at and below freezing. So we're looking at ice on things such as your car, power lines, trees, plants, the mirrors of your car. Anything essentially that is at or below freezing will get some ice on it as this freezing rain falls. The area that's going to take the biggest hit looks like looks like around Fredericksburg and area south. So I'm on Facebook Live with you guys. If you could comment and let me know what's happening in your neighborhood. I'd like to know exactly what you're seeing there, but I know that just from looking outside and understanding the temperature profiles of the atmosphere, this is not snow over DC. It is in fact freezing rain, and we're likely seeing the same thing around the Leesburg area. Let's take a little trip around the region and talk about what's happening. So DC right now getting the freezing rain. We're also seeing that around Upper Marlboro and Bowie, even in Silver Spring, down toward Alexandria and Clinton as well. And then as we look around Sterling, Reston, Fairfax, and Chantilly, this also is coming off as snow, but it's likely some sleet and some freezing rain instead. Further south around the north, I should say, around Dayton, Columbia, Olney, Rockville, Germantown, all up to 70. This is coming back as snow, but likely, I haven't gotten any reports from there yet to confirm, but it's likely still what we're seeing in DC, which is the freezing rain and the sleet that'll begin to mix in. And then further south, Upper Marlboro, Dunkirk, freezing rain is already occurring there. Waldorf, same story. And even further south around the Dahlgren, Colonia Beach areas, that is an area, these areas that we're watching that have an even higher risk of getting a significant amount of ice. This is where the ice storm warning is going to be. So we're getting in. This is the beginning of it. We're going to continue to see this throughout the afternoon and evening. And then after, say, 7, 8, 9 o'clock tonight, we will still see this, but it will be a little bit lighter for us. So let's go over what's happening now. We've got this disturbance passing just by our south. And the problem is it's not cold enough throughout the entire atmosphere. All right. So the top layer of our atmosphere is cold. The middle layer is too warm to hold on to that precipitation of snow, so it melts. And then right as you get to the very bottom, it is cold enough for that to refreeze over onto surfaces and objects. So this is our disturbance that we're tracking right here. Ice can be very crippling. It's the worst type of winter precipitation in my opinion, in my professional opinion. All right, here's a snapshot of what will be happening at 1:30. By this time, 1:30, a lot of areas will have had some ice accumulate, and at this point things really start to get slick and slippery out there in terms of ice having accumulated on things. Even your driveway or sidewalk, if that's not treated before you even get to the car, there could be some slips and falls. So we got to be careful of that. Temperatures today, they're struggling to get out of the 20s and out of the 30s. So we're going to see some cold times today, along with the freezing rain and the sleet at times. If you're around the Salisbury area, maybe a cold rain for you with temperatures in the upper 30s, but where you, Andrews 27, DC 28, Leesburg 28, you're definitely getting the freezing rain and the sleet. Backing it up to about 3:30 this afternoon, we can still see some freezing rain and a little more of a change over to rain as you head closer toward Delaware and Ocean City. And then by 7:30 this evening, we start to see the bulk of this precipitation push over to the east. Now, these newer model runs today and this morning have been a bit more aggressive about pushing this out a little bit earlier, which is a good thing. We do want this to get out of here as quickly as possible. It's not going to completely end. It's still going to be light and spotty, but it's going to be there. So we do still have to contend with this into Saturday night. It's still not going to be great to go out Saturday night. There's still going to be ice out there on the roads, the trees, and the power lines. This is at 9 o'clock tonight, and you can see by 10:30 things are very spotty and light, but still out there. By Sunday morning, 7 a.m., this should be wrapping up altogether. Then by Sunday afternoon, We're actually going to get those temperatures in the upper 30s to right around 40, and we could see a few spotty showers, especially south and east of D.C. Thing about tomorrow, I know it's Valentine's Day, you want to celebrate. You do still have to be careful of the melting ice. That's part 2 of an ice storm, right? First you get it to freeze, then it melts, and what happens is it falls in chunks off of power lines and trees. I have been, since I've been here in this area between Baltimore and D.C., in situations where it's so bad, people had to move their cars because the ice was falling in such big chunks. That's dangerous, right? You got weight, you've got the, mass and velocity coming down. It can, pick up speed. The bigger it comes, the harder it falls. And so you can have some real issues from falling ice, damaging cars and hopefully not damaging you, but it is a possibility. So that's part 2 of this. And that's really going to be treacherous around the Fredericksburg area, point south. And they already got slammed with several inches of snow. So now you're about to add some ice on top of it. It really is just the worst type of situation. But we are not done just yet. So Sunday night, we'll have some rain and perhaps even some mixing passing by. And then Monday morning, we could see some rain and then some rain and sleet working its way into the area, maybe even some freezing rain north of D.C. That's what we're going to be looking at. Temperatures be at 34 in D.C., so you might not get much freezing there, but you'd like to get some sleet and a cold rain at times. So Monday is going to be another active weather day for us. Here are all the areas in purple included within the winter weather advisory. Generally in the advisory area, the ice accumulations will be a bit lighter, but I'm here to tell you that it does not take much ice. Even if it is a light glaze, that is slick and slippery. It can cause slips and falls and car accidents and power outages, so we do have to be careful of that. I'd be more concerned, however, for the power outages around La Plata, Fredericksburg, and the Tappahannock area. So let me pop onto Facebook now. This is why I have my phone in my hand. I want to see what your comments are and see what you're seeing in your neighborhood, and then just answer any questions that you all may have. So I'm just going to hop on here, try to get to some of those comments. All right, let's get to these comments. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Linda, good morning. Enjoy your day and to stay safe. Thank you, Linda. That's very nice. All right. Bad weather all around, says Stephanie. Icy on the porch in Mechanicsville, Maryland, and St. Mary's. Hey, Patricia, thank you for that update. Patricia's saying that it's already icy on her porch. So yeah, anything that's not treated is going to ice over pretty quickly. So hopefully you've gotten everything that you need and you can just kind of hunker down until we begin to see this taper down a bit and we start to get some melting out there. All right. You're in Bowie right now, Joel. You want to know, is it going to get worse? So it will get worse in the sense that you're going to see more ice accumulate as this continues into the afternoon. Right now, it's a light glaze, which is still slick and slippery. But let's fast forward to 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At that point, you've got even more ice, so you've got more slick spots. So if you can just hang tight until this begins to dissipate, by tomorrow morning, we'll see most of the precipitation gone. In fact, as early as 7, 8, 9 o'clock tonight, it will start to lighten up, but it's still going to be frozen. It's not like just because it stopped raining completely, the ice isn't going anywhere. It's still frozen, and it will take time, and a little bit of heat is going to be needed to get that ice to melt, and that'll be happening tomorrow. So it's going to be a while. Oh, hey, Kia, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Dia wants to know about Gaithersburg. Yeah, so we do have, obviously you're included in the winter weather advisory in the Gaithersburg area, so I'd be looking out for freezing rain and sleet to be happening. So this is not going to be a snow event. I know the radar is picking up on snow in some areas, like for example in DC right now, the radar is showing me snow. That's not snow. It's just where the radar is hitting in the atmosphere, it's still snow. But by the time it makes its way to us, it has completely melted, but those drops are super cooled. So water, the freezing point is 32 degrees, but supercooled water can still be in liquid form below that 32-degree threshold. So you've got the supercooled water hitting, say, the top of your car, which is at 30 degrees. It's going to freeze on there, and that's how you start to get that glaze of ice. Culpeper, a light mist. Hey, Craig, thank you for that. So that light mist is still likely freezing. It's just very light. Lighter is better when it comes to this. All right. Are you going to get snow? We're not looking at snow out of this particular event. It's mainly going to be sleet and freezing rain. If you manage to get a flurry, consider yourself lucky because the atmosphere is not cold enough all the way through. So think of the atmosphere as a, maybe a 10-story building. And the first, up the top floor is cold, but you get to the 5th floor and it gets warmer. So that snowflake begins to melt. So from the 5th floor on down, it's too warm for that snowflake to survive as a snowflake. So it melts completely by the time it makes its way down. So, we wouldn't really see the snow here. It'd be higher up in the atmosphere. It will have melted by the time it's gotten here. All right. Anybody else out there? Have the major roads, Cheryl? I'd have to check with some of my news colleagues to see if those roads have been treated. I would imagine so, but I can check with them. Icy in Fredericksburg. Yes, I know it's going to continue to get there. Icy on Carr in King George. If it's safe, maybe even from your window. I don't want you to go out slipping around because it's not going to be too safe to get on your porch and into your driveways. If you can snap a picture from the window and send it to us, we'd love to see what everything is looking like out there. That would be good to see. All right, Laurel, Callie. So Laurel, you are still looking at the sleet and the freezing rain for your area as well. Freezing rain and sleet in Bristow. Okay, driveway is a sheet of ice and sidewalks are a sheet of ice. Hey, Amy, thank you for that. Amy, please be safe. I hope you don't have to go out because there is no winning on ice. Unless you're at an ice skating rink and you got ice skates on, it's not going to work. You're slipping and sliding, even just getting out of your driveway. So I hope that you don't have to go out. And this is starting to get conditions are deteriorating rather quickly where you are. Ice totals. Someone asked about ice totals. When will this end in southern Anne Arundel County? Alice McCormick. So southern Anne Arundel County, I would say after 9 o'clock, it may begin to get a little bit lighter for you, but it's still going to be going on. In other words, if you have full-on freezing rain right now, after 9 o'clock, it may be more freezing drizzle. You're still getting ice, maybe not as fast as you were earlier, but you're still getting ice and you still got ice because those temperatures are staying below freezing through the night in most areas. We're going to go a quick look over radar, and someone asked about ice total, so let me go ahead and show that as well. So here's what we've got going on. This is our disturbance passing to the south, and this is the next few hours. 1:30 p.m. we can still see most areas getting sleet and freezing rain at this point, so ice is continuing to accumulate. Models have been pushing this out a little bit earlier. I would say after 9 o'clock things will begin to lighten up in terms of the amount falling. You will notice that it gets a little bit more spotty, but you're still going to have some pockets where it's still coming down, and even if you don't still have it coming down, you still got ice out there. It's not going anywhere. Once it freezes, it's there until temperatures warm up enough for it to melt. So that's what we'll be looking at there. Here, all our areas in the advisories in the purple, winter weather advisory, ice storm warning in red. Yeah, it's going to be treacherous in those areas in La Plata and Tappahannock, Fredericksburg. Please, if you can, stay inside. So some of the ice totals, the NAM has backed off of the totals a bit for DC and points north. So it's giving less than 1/10 of an inch. We may still end up with at least 1/10 of an inch around these areas, but it's south of DC that really causes for the concern. Fredericksburg and La Plata, more than 1/10 of an inch there. It does not take much ice. Even a thin glaze can do some damage. So this is what we're looking at in terms of how much ice could accumulate, likely even more down around Fredericksburg and Tappahannock. Whereas with snow, if I told you guys 1/10 of an inch of snow, you'd probably laugh me off. But with ice, it's a different ball game. Less really is more when it comes to that. Okay. Julio, is it Julio Perez? Says he loves this weather, keeps my beers nice and icy. There you go. All right. And ice rain currently coming down in Clinton. Hey, Kiki, thank you for that. Anybody else with some comments? Nothing in Stevens City. Give it some time, Kelly. You have to go to Crofton from Clinton. How are the roads? At last check, the roads were wet from what we saw, but I would just be cautious. Is it Tanya? Tanya Williams-Jones? Just want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I would still be cautious, but I mean, I'm not in that area looking at the roads, but I just noticed in DC the streets still appeared wet, but appearances are really something when you're dealing with ice, because what could appear wet could actually have a thin glaze of ice, and that's all you need to get slipping and sliding. So do be careful if you do have to venture out. Upper Marlboro, Alta Hayes, you're going to be getting some freezing rain and maybe some intermittent sleet at times. You got nothing in Leesburg just yet. Give it some time, Megan, and thank you for that report, because the radar is picking up on some snow over that area, and it's picking up on snow here in DC, but I know it's not snow. So give it some time. You'll eventually start to see at least some light freezing drizzle coming down with that. Clinton, Maryland, icy. It's currently coming down. All right. Martinsburg, West Virginia. So Robert Shellac, you're still within the areas where you could pick up on some freezing rain and sleet, but you're a little bit further north. The further south you are, the better chance you have on picking up on the higher amount. So you're still within the winter weather advisory, and same story. You're going to be dealing with the sleet and freezing rain. The accumulations may be a little bit lighter for you, but even with the lighter accumulations, that could still cause lots of slick spots out there, even if it's just on your driveway or your porch or your car. That could be enough to cause some slips and some falls. So do be careful if you head out there. Waldorf, Maryland. Hi, David. So Waldorf, you are looking at the freezing rain and the sleet, as is most of the DMV right now. And I'll go back to radar and show you guys what's currently happening. Tons of trucks with salt on 270 in Rockville. Ari, thank you for that. That's good to know that there is some treatment out there. Will it be clear? Will it be clear daylight in Indian Head, Maryland, La Plata area, traveling back Maryland tomorrow? Julia, you want to know will it be clear by daylight, Julia? So by 7 a.m., I'm anticipating that no later than that, the bulk of this will be gone. A lot of it will likely clear up even before then, but even with light precip still falling, we just want to be cautious of that. Now, you're driving back tomorrow. Temperatures are going to be warming up, so the ice is going to begin to melt, with temperatures coming up to the upper 30s to right around 40 in most areas. But when you're driving, please be careful of falling ice, chunks of falling ice. Imagine if you had some ice up on the power lines and suddenly it's warm enough for that ice to come down. It could come down in a huge chunk, and that could be dangerous. So you do have to watch for the falling chunks of ice. I've seen it numerous times. It was so bad in Baltimore one time. Numerous cars were damaged. We had to move those cars. The station that I worked for had to provide us with a different place. We couldn't even park at work. It was so bad because of how we know that the ice comes down from those higher locations. So, you know, I am just based on experience. Please do be careful of that. Fairfax, Virginia, Jean, you are also looking at sleet and freezing rain. Leonardtown, Pamela Miller, you were in one of the worst spots for this. In fact, you may have a significant amount of ice that develops there, and you're already seeing it happen right now. Let me go back to radar really quick and show everybody what's happening. So here is Fredericksburg. This is Dahlgren, Colonia Beach, Port Royal. These are the areas where you're likely going to see higher amounts of ice developing. It started a little bit earlier there. There's Mechanicsville up to just the right of your screen. It's light right now, but it is going to get a little bit heavier in those areas. DC, this is showing as snow. It's not snow over DC. It is freezing rain. I can confirm that. So what happens is, I'll just explain this again, where the radar senses what type of precipitation is falling is a little bit higher up in the atmosphere, and so it sends out a signal and it reports back, hey, it's snow. And at that level, it may very well be snow. It's just like at the top of the building, sure, it's snow. But by the time it makes its way all the way down to where we are, it has melted, and then it is freezing on those surfaces. Al, I'm not looking at much snow out of this. If you get some snow, you're lucky. The temperature profile would support freezing rain and sleet. Lexington Park and Leonardtown. Karen, you're looking at freezing rain, mostly in that area, so ice will be accumulating. Same around the Indian Head, Maryland area. Stafford, you as well. You're looking at freezing rain and sleet, but mostly freezing rain accumulating. Harrington, Delaware, I'm not 300% sure about the exact part of Harrington, but what I can tell you is around Delaware, you'd still be looking at some sleet and freezing rain, but at times that will actually change over to rain depending on which part of Delaware you are. So the southern edge of Delaware, this part is mostly rain, but just depending on where that is, and do forgive me, I've been to Delaware, but not to that particular area. You'd be looking in the northern edge of Delaware. So if you're in the northern edge of Delaware, you'd be looking at some freezing rain and sleet as well. Still getting a few more comments. Icy, is it icy in Upper Marlboro? Has the freezing rain started? Looks like it has, yes, according to our radar, that you were at least getting some light freezing rain in that particular area. Silver Spring, Anita, Silver Spring also likely getting some freezing rain at this point. And Bethesda, Maryland, Donna, yeah, right outside of DC, you're likely looking at freezing rain. Freezing rain is tricky. Let me just back up and explain that again for anybody who's just joining us. Freezing rain falls as regular rain. So you might peek outside your window, just taking a little peeky peek, and you're thinking, oh, it's just rain. Let me just run to the grocery store and grab some milk and eggs or whatever it is you may need. But then you get to your car and lo and behold, there's a thin glaze of ice on that car. You're trying to open the door and there's ice. You're like, whoa, what is going on here? So what's happening is that freezing rain is falling as regular rain, but it is beginning to freeze on contact with, not necessarily on contact, but not long after, on those surfaces that are at and below freezing. So if the temperature of the roof of your car is 29 degrees, and then that rain falls on it, it's going to freeze. The rain already is cold. It used to be a snowflake that melted on the way down, and that water droplet is super cooled, meaning it is remaining liquid even though the temperature is below freezing of that particular water drop. So it's not going to take a lot of time for things to get icy and dicey real quick around here. All right, Elk Ridge, Maryland, getting a mix of rain and freezing rain. Hey, thank you, Stephanie, for that. I appreciate it. Freezing rain has started in Bowie. Thank you for that. Joan and McCall, thank you. Raining in Manassas, Virginia for an hour. Sean, that is likely freezing rain. If you probably just take a little peek, just open your door and look on your porch, you may start to notice a glaze of ice right outside your door there, so be careful. Steps are icy in Springfield. Jonathan, thank you for that. Folks, things are quickly starting to deteriorate around here in terms of the ice accumulating rather quickly. This is just the beginning. Wait until a couple hours and it's really going to have an even thicker layer of ice out there. So hopefully you don't have to go anywhere. You know, I understand that in this area that snow gets all the bells and whistles, right? Snow is a popular kid in high school, but really it's the ice you gotta watch out for. The ice to me is just the absolute worst. First of all, it's, you know, snow, maybe you can put some snow chains on your tires, maybe you can get better traction under the wheels. It's slick and slippery, but if you really had to, an inch or two of snow, obviously, you can kind of get through that. Ice, a glaze of it, and you're slipping and sliding everywhere. There was a huge car pileup on I-35 in the Dallas area. Numerous people died in those crashes. It's so easy and so slick and slippery. And then on top of that, it's like ice is a 1-2 punch, because first we get the ice, right? And then the temperatures get warm and it starts melting. You're like, great, it's melting, I love it. But on the higher areas where the ice was freezing, it starts falling down in chunks with no regard to who is standing beneath it. So I do not like ice storms. They are my least favorite winter weather-like phenomenon. If it's a light icing event and it looks nice on a tree, great. But I have just firsthand seen the problems that it can cause, and it's just, you have no control. It's just too slick and slippery. I want to continue to hear from you. I also want to see some of your pictures. You can send them to us on Facebook. You can also use our Near Me feature on the WSA9 app, so it's easy to upload a picture to that. You can tweet it to us. Use the hashtag WSA9weather. Please don't go outside. I'm just saying, if you can open your door and snap something, if you can open your window and snap something, I do not advocate for you to go out in this weather to get us a picture. I'm just saying, if you happen to open your window or open your door and you snap something, go right ahead. With icy porches, reports of icy porches, I highly suggest that you don't do that. I don't need the picture that bad. I got a Doppler 10,000 over here. I got a weather terror, so I can see. But if you want to share, I'd love to see it. If you can do so safely by staying inside and just kind of snapping out the window, that'd be great. All right. Anybody else? Lexington Park, Maryland is starting to get ice. Stephanie, thanks for everything. Appreciate it. Rain has started in Indian Head, Maryland. Yeah, Beverly, it's probably freezing rain. You're going to start to see some ice developing pretty soon. Anybody else have any other comments that they want to share, want to hear about what's happening in your neighborhood? Just to peek out the window is fine. You don't have to go outside, please. It's too slick and slippery out there. I'm getting numerous reports just from this Facebook live stream that a lot of you are already seeing ice on your sidewalks. You're seeing it on your driveways, on your steps. Slips and falls can happen. My best friend lives in Dallas. She was stepping out of her house and there was an ice storm in Dallas and she twisted her ankle, had to be, take off time from work, had to have her feet propped up for months. It was rather nasty. So you don't want none of that. So just go ahead, stay inside. I'm sure everybody's bought up all the toilet tissue from the summer, so you're probably good on that. If it can wait until tomorrow, please. Obviously, if you have an emergency, that's different. But if you don't have to, just don't. There's tons of good stuff you can watch on WSA 9 or Netflix, whatever's your cup of tea. Whatever it takes to keep you inside and safe. All right? Anybody else out there? Okay. Yes, be safe out there. So I'm going to recap for those of you just joining to do a recap of what's happening, the timeline and everything. Just to recap, my name is Mary Marshall. I'm a meteorologist here at WSA 9. I want to bring you this update about deteriorating weather conditions out there due to ice. We are starting to get numerous reports of glazes of ice. We're getting reports of, obviously I can see on radar here, freezing rain, light freezing drizzle, a little bit of sleet mixing in occasionally. We're dealing with what could be some crippling weather, especially south of DC, where even more freezing rain is likely. All right, so here's a snapshot now of our radar. This is DC. You see a lot of white here and blue. The radar thinks that it's snow. It's not for us. Where the radar is detecting it higher up in the atmosphere, it is snow. It's just by the time it gets to us, it has melted. So it has changed form. And what's happening is the temperatures are so cold that any object that this rain comes across, it will begin to freeze on that object if it's at or below freezing. Power lines, trees, the roof of your car doors, the windows, the mirrors, your sidewalks, your driveways, street signs, anything that is at and below freezing, it's going to be freezing on it. We've already gotten glazes of ice. I've walked outside and saw it on the weather terrace. I just kind of stood by the door and took a picture. I've got heels on. I'm not in the mood for slipping and tripping over ice. I know better. So I stood right out there, took a little video, came right back over here to stay safe. So we're going to continue to see this throughout the evening and the night, and eventually it is going to lighten up and move out of here. But we're starting to get into the thick of it right now. So let's talk about what's happening around the area. If you're in Bowie, Upper Marlboro, Clinton, you're starting to get some freezing rain. Could be a little sleet mixing in, but it's likely mostly freezing rain based on the temperature profile of the atmosphere. Reston, Fairfax, it looks rather light. If it's not hitting you just yet, it will be soon. We'll move around to Sterling, Chantilly. You're probably at this point, if you're in Chantilly, let me know what you got. Because the radar it's a little deceptive right now. I know better because I know what's happening. You're likely getting some freezing rain. If you haven't gotten it already, it's going to be starting soon, and you might be even getting a little bit of sleet to mix in. A little further up north around the 270 corridor, Rockville, Germantown. If this is rather light right now, but you're likely starting to get some sleet and some freezing rain out there as well around the area. Same around the Baltimore area, and a little bit further down south, Upper Marlboro, Dunkirk, Waldorf, all these areas, Alexandria, freezing rain and sleet has started there. And Dahlgren, Colonia Beach, you're getting into the thick of it now with a little bit heavier precipitation coming down. This is icing. This is freezing rain, falling as regular rain, and then freezing on those surfaces that are at and below freezing. So this is the entire system that's going to be sliding just to our south, but sadly close enough to give us that threat for ice, and that's what we'll be dealing with for most of the day. Here's a snapshot of 3:30 today. At this point, we still have the freezing rain and even some rain along Salisbury and parts of Delaware at that point, the southern edge of Delaware. It's transitioned over to rain because temperatures have come above freezing there, but DC stuck at 29. That's going to be freezing rain if anything liquid is coming out of the sky. Now, the trend of the models of the latest runs and even of this morning has been to kick this out a little bit earlier. Oh boy, are we ever rooting for that. We want this gone. So after, I'd say 7, 8, or 9 o'clock, there'll still be some drizzle, freezing drizzle, and freezing rain and sleet left over, but it will be lighter and a little bit more spotty, but it will be continuing kind of off and on through the night up till about Sunday morning at about 7 a.m. Most areas should have a break from the winter weather at that point. And then Sunday, those temperatures come back above freezing. And at that point, we'll have some melting, but we could also have some falling chunks of ice. Just to recap, these are all the areas in purple included within the winter weather advisory. They include D.C., Howard County, Montgomery County, Loudoun County, Front Royal, Winchester, Martinsburg, Culpeper, Manassas. In the red, unfortunately, is where we have an ice storm warning for potentially significant amounts of accumulating ice in these particular areas. That includes La Plata, Fredericksburg, Tappahannock, Patuxent River, up through Cambridge, Orange, and even near the Charlottesville area where there's actually a winter storm warning going on there. So this is just what we are dealing with today. The accumulations of ice, this is new, actually. It now brings D.C. up to 1/10 of an inch of ice. And I thought that previous run was a little bit low, but up to 1/10 of an inch of ice or more is likely possible in D.C., and just the smallest amount could really cause some problems. Further south of D.C., I think these numbers are a bit low. You'll probably have close to 2/10 of an inch of ice potentially along Fredericksburg and the Tappahannock area. So I'll take a few more comments, and then I'm going to conclude this Facebook Live and continue to have you guys follow us on social media and also on our website where we're consistently updating everything. Anyone else? Nothing in Inwood, West Virginia. Light freezing rain in Gaithersburg. All right. Hey, Derek, thank you for that. The radar shows snow in Gaithersburg. We know it's not snowing there. We know that the temperatures in the atmosphere are just much too warm for those snowflakes to survive, and so they are melting and then freezing on surfaces. Be careful. You're gonna see some icing rather soon. Patrick, thank you for the Valentine's Day wish. Loretta, you have nothing here yet. Where are you, Loretta? All right. And back to rain, back and forth between rain and ice. So you're getting freezing rain and sleet, Sean. Okay, thank you. All right, well, guys, listen, I'm going to conclude this Facebook Live. It's been such a pleasure to have you with me. Remember that later on tonight, after 9 o'clock or so, things will get a little bit lighter and spotty, but it's still going to be ongoing, and you're still going to have a lot of ice out there, likely sheets of ice on driveways and sidewalks and porches. So please do stay in. It's not going to be a good night out there on the roads this evening or tonight. Even if the precipitation does begin to lighten up, I just urge you, you're grown, you can do what you want, obviously, but I'm just urging you as someone who has your best interests at heart when it comes to weather and your safety, just stay inside if you can. And unless you really have an emergency, it's going to be treacherous out there on the roads, especially the further south you go in D.C. Tomorrow will top out with high temperatures near the 40-degree mark. The ice will be melting, but there's a caution in that as well, because you get those big chunks of ice that fall off because they're destabilized because of the warming, and so that could fall on people, onto cars. Just do be careful of that. It's been a pleasure to have you with us. Please continue to follow us for all the latest updates. Take care.